Okay, this Choseva learning should be a panacea. I'm going to start Kuf Tes Vav, Amud Beis. Kuf Tes Vav, Amud Beis. Right in the middle. The drop under the center, under the middle. Amarava. See that? Amarava. Amarava. Rava says, Bala matzah. If someone swallowed matzah without chewing it, yeah, today it's hard to imagine because our matzah would be sharp and jagged edges. But in the olden days, they didn't bake the matzah the way we bake it, thin and crispy, crunchy, and like crackers. They had it more like doughy, like a laffa. Oh, nice, thank you. So it would be possible to take it would be like just bread that didn't rise. It would be possible to swallow it. So if someone swallowed it, yatzah, he was yatzah the mitzvah. It doesn't say in the Torah that you have to taste the matzah. It says that you have to eat matzah. Right. Oh, really? I didn't know. Okay, so oh my God. So it only says you have to eat matzah. So if you eat the matzah without chewing, so you yatzah. Now it says yatzah. Doesn't mean lachatchila you're supposed to. It means you yatzah b'di'evet. Bola marar. Let's say someone swallows the marar, so he doesn't chew it. So then la yatzah, because over there you're supposed to taste the sharpness, or the bitterness of the mar, because it's from the pasuk by Maras Chayeya. Yeah, but if you don't chew it, then you don't get it. You don't get it. You have to chew it. Bola matzah umarar. Let's say you do both together. So yedei matzah yatzah, yedei mar la yatzah. Okay. So regarding this, we could have thought that maybe you don't get anything here. You didn't chew it. Maybe it's not considered like you swallowed it either, because it's not considered, because when you swallowed it, the maror was surrounding it. So it didn't like touch your throat. Maybe it has to touch your throat. Maybe you have to taste it. Well, you didn't do either. Maybe you're not yaitza. It says no, you are yaitza. Now there's another girsa here. The other girsa says, Balamatzumara. Another girsa. It says Balamara yatza. And what would that mean? The other girsa says that if you swallow mara, you're yaitza, because it says it's impossible that you didn't taste anything from it. Different girsa. Okay. Karchan b'siv. Let's say you wrapped it up with the growth that grows around the palm tree. It's like a netting, these little hairs, these fibers that are on the palm tree. They used it to wrap it up. You know when they tell you to swallow something that's trade, like a medicine, they tell you to put it in a tissue. So that's what this discussion is. If you take the matzah and you put it in the tissue, you put it in the little fibers that grow around the palm tree. So what does it say? If you wrapped it up and you swallowed it, you're not yatzah the matzah either. Why? Why aren't you yatzah? It wasn't considered in your mouth. It wasn't considered that you ate it. The Ran learns differently. The Ran says it's not considered derech achila. Now, why? Because those things are not really edible. The nafkamina, according to the Ran, would be if you wrapped it up in something that was edible. You wrapped it up in fruit roll-up, and then you swallowed it. I know fruit roll-up's edible. My wife would tell me that's poison. Okay, organic fruit roll-up. So then, see me there. Okay. Amar Rav Simi Barashi. Rav Simi Barashi says, "Matzah lefnei kol echad ve'echad, mar lefnei kol echad ve'echad, b'reis lefnei kol echad ve'echad." You see, they used to have these reclining chairs, and they had these small tables. These what are they called? TV dinner tables. They used to have these little tables that would go next to them. So each person needed matzah. Every person needed marar. Everyone needed chareses. And however, what happens is you remove the table. We're going to see a drop more about this in a moment. You remove the table before they start saying the Haggadah. And it's before they start eating. So you bring out the food and they start taking it away. You know, sometimes you're a guest at someone's house, so you're eating the soup. If you take a little bit too long and they're already clearing, so they're standing next to you with it. Anyway, like, hey, give me a moment, I'm finishing. So over here, you didn't even eat. You didn't even eat. They're taking the table away. But so where do you take the table? Only from the one that's reciting the Haggadah. Not everyone's table needs to be removed. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion over here. Let's go a little further. We'll go back to it. Rav Huna Amar Kulanami. No, you don't need the matzah by every person. You don't need the mara by every person. Only the host needs it, and they had separate tables. In other words, everyone gets their supply of whatever they needed from him. He was the one. Why did they remove the table? Remember, we say you push the Seder plate away. For us, we don't do it significant enough. Yeah, because the table's so crowded. So we're wondering, like, what are we doing? You move it like this, like 1 inch really is going to, is that the halacha? You move it. So why do you take it away? The children should wonder. They should recognize and they should ask, what's going on? Abaya sitting in front of Rabba. Abaya was an orphan, so he grew up in Rabba's house. And so he's sitting in front of Rabba. He sees they're removing the table. Atu, I guess. Atu kamaki takami kaman. You're already removing the table. We didn't eat yet. Amali Rabba says, you've exempted us from reciting the Manashtana. We were hoping you would ask that. Pesach says, hey, that's not the whole Manashtana. That's only one. That's only one point. It says, Pesach says, well, there was a whole conversation that ensued after that, and that was the beginning of it. Okay, let's just go back. Tosfos mentions that today our tables, we don't really remove our tables. We can't remove our tables. They're too large. You're not going to get all the adults together to move the table over. So what we do is we just push the plate away. That's like removing the table. Then Tosfos mentions that this custom about taking off the two tavshilin, which means the neck and the egg, to take them off before you remove the table, he says that's not necessary. He says that's talking about something else. You don't have to remove that when you're removing the table. We'll see in the Gemara later what the Tosfos is referring to. Okay. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says lechem aini. It says in the pasuk lechem aini. What does that mean? So Shmuel translates it. Lechem she'einam alav dvarim. It means bread that you respond over it. That you have to say the Haggadah over this bread. It's the bread that you recite. So in other words, during the Haggadah, the bread is supposed to be there. That we'll see in a moment. Davar acher, another pshat, lechem aini. It says lechem aini, the bread that you respond over, ani ksiv, but it's not written aini, it's written ani, which means a poor man. Why is this a poor man's bread? Ma ani shadarki beprusa, afkan beprusa. It needs to be broken. Follow? Needs to be broken. Just like a poor man, when he comes to the house, give me some bread. They don't give him a whole loaf. They give him a slice of bread. So that's what he gets. So also over here, we only get like a slice, just a half a matzah. Another pshat. Ma darker salani hu masik vishta yaita. Just like a poor man, you see, they would have to light the oven, get the fire going, and then for Pesach, what you would do is you would knead the bread, knead the dough. You would knead the dough. While it was rising, you would get the fire started, and it takes time to get the fire started. So once the fire is ready, by then the dough has already risen, and you would put it in. And when it comes to matzah, you can't do that. You can't delay the baking of the matzah. So what would you have to do? Yeah, I mean, there's only one person, let's say. So you would have to get the fire started beforehand, and then knead the dough, but that would require more wood because it would burn more by the time you're ready, right? So it wouldn't be. So the poor man can't do this alone. He doesn't have enough wood, so he has to do it together with his wife. Who masik vishta yaisa? He has to light the fire at exactly the same time. Afkanam hu masik vishta yaisa, which means that the poor man never does this. He never wants to burn extra wood. So here for Pesach, we don't want to have any chametz. I mean, if it wasn't Pesach, you could have done it where he just lets it rise longer. Okay, whatever the case is, it's telling us that you have to bake the bread right away. You don't want to use up any extra wood. Dr. Stein has a good lesson that the couple that works together doesn't have chametz, doesn't create chametz. Okay, let's go back to when we said ma darke beprusa afkan beprusa. Rashbam, Rashi say that we say the bracha of alachilat matzah and the prusa. Yeah, but we recite two brachas over the matzah. You have all three together, but we recite two brachas. So there's a major machlokes. Which bracha is going on what? Now, to recite Hamaitzi, I just need a small taste. To recite, in other words, to be yot to the bracha of Hamaitzi, I just have a little bit. I have to say the bracha. Now, officially, you're supposed to have more than that, but that's for meal thing. But for brachas wise, you just need a taste. You were yot to the bracha. Now, for alachilas matzah, I need to have a kazayas. So if I say alachilas matzah on the whole loaf, which on the top matzah, which is whole, which is the opinion, I think, of the Rif and the Rambam, then you have to eat a kazayas from the top one. If you say alachilas matzah on the broken one, then you have a kazayas from the broken one. And Taisva says that the hamaitzi is really going on the broken one also. And Rashbam says the hamaitzi is going on the whole one. The top of the bottom. Shtei shleimas. You're only going to eat. You only have to eat. But the shleima is getting the hamaitzi. There's two shleimas. The bottom one, Taisva says that we're going to save it for later, for the kricha, for the tina sehila, for the kaira. So, because of this, if you do have the two matzahs, if you do have the seder, you have the three matzahs in front of you, so you drop the bottom one and you say the bracha. What's really going to come out is because of this complication, you're really supposed to eat two kazayas. A kazayas of the top one and a kazayas of the bottom one. Because what did the bracha go on? Yeah, that's where they get this from. very frum people, they you can't really, I don't know how they do it. They chew it up and then swallow them, the whole kazayas together. There's all types of chumras. Yeah. Okay. Whatever it is, don't interrupt while you're eating the matzah. What's the difference between shein charesis mitzvah. We said in the Mishnah that the charesis isn't a mitzvah, but you nevertheless have charesis. Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok said that it was a mitzvah. So v'ilai mitzvah mishamai ma'isila. If it's not a mitzvah, so why do you bring it? Amar Abami misham kappa. Mami says you bring it because of kappa. Kappa is either a poison or a worm that's in it. And somehow the charesis gets rid of the poison, neutralizes the poison, it kills the worm. If it kills the worm, how are you allowed to eat it? In the lettuce, yeah. How are you allowed to eat it? Well, maybe it falls out, or maybe you're able to eat it because it never left. Yeah, that's a problem. Unless maybe when it comes to a mitzvah, we have to be more careful. Well, maybe because of sakan. Oh. I don't know. Ravasi. Ravasi says, yeah. The worm. Yeah. Right. That, just the taste? Oh, I didn't know that it was to taste. Well, no, the Rashbam and Rashi say that it's a poison. Yes, that there's a poison there. Who do they quote when they say it's for taste? Okay. Rabbeinu Hananel said that it was a worm. Oh. Where do you see that? Where do you see Kederach HaBetzalim? Where was it? Oh, you're right. It could mean just acidic. Yeah. Okay, very good. Yeshakayach. Ravasi says, Kappa the Chasa, Kama. If you have the poison of the lettuce, afterwards you have radish that will take it away. That's how the Rashbam translates this. Kappa the Chama, if you have the poison of the radish, karti, then you eat leeks, that will take it away. Kappa the karti, chamimi, if you have the poison of the karti, then you have hot water. Kappa the kula chamimi, the poison of anything, hot water will neutralize it. Adhachi v'hachi, but in the interim, neimahachi, say the following. Kappa kappa, I guess worm or poison. Dakir nalach, I recognize you. L'shev benasech, and to your 7 daughters, l'tamni kalasech, and your 8 daughters-in-law. Yeah, that's a lachash. Yeah, and as we always say, don't try this at home. Okay. It's just an incantation. I don't know what it means. Yeah, it's some sort of evil spirit that's there. Okay, Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok on a mitzvah. Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok says that it's a mitzvah to bring the charesis. My mitzvah, what mitzvah is there in the charesis? It didn't say it in the Torah. You should have charesis. Rabbi Levi Rabbi Levi says, tapua. In the charesis is tapua. Tapua is either apple or esrog or something. Maybe it's a citrus. So, or it's an apple. But what it says is that in Egypt, the women would conceive possibly and give birth under the apple tree. They didn't want the Egyptians to see what they were doing, that they were having more children, maybe. Anyway, they would give birth under the apple tree. So, to commemorate that apple tree, so that's why we have this. So that's what it means. It's a mitzvah. So what he means is that it's symbolism. That there's a symbolism here. It's not just the napkin that you use to wipe off the lettuce or something. It's a secondary. No, it has its own symbolism. That's what I mean. Rabbi Yochanan Zeichel Atit. Rabbi Yochanan says it commemorates the mortar. Amar Abaya, Elkach Tzarech L'Kiyuv V'Tzarech L'Samchuyi. Therefore, you need the sharpness, so it should symbolize the apple, which is sharp, the Granny Smith apple. And you need the thickness. Yeah, not the Honeycrisp. L'Kiyuv is Zeichel Tabuach. V'Tzarech L'Samchuyi is Zeichel Tit. You need the thickness to commemorate the tit, the mortar. Interesting Tosfos here. Tosfos says that Yerushalmi says that it was also commemorating the blood. That's why it was called that you dip it mashka. And he says that's the custom, that while you're eating it, you add a little wine into it. You know the Chabad minhag is to add a little wine a little bit later from the plate. The Chuvas Hagainim, Tosfos quotes, says that the harissa should be made with fruits that the Jewish people are compared to in Shira Shira. Apples, pomegranates, figs, dates, walnuts, and almonds. Yeah, he gives you the recipe. Yeah. What happened to pears? I thought wasn't there a custom to put pears in it? I don't know. Tanya Kavasei de Rabbi Yochanan. There's a brisa that supports Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says it's commemorating the mortar. So Tavla and Zeichel Atit. The brisa says that the spices that were added are similar to the straw. I'm sorry, Zeichel Atevin. This is commemorating the straw that was put into the bricks to make the mortar. Charei says Zeichel Atit. But the thickness, the spices that are in it are similar to the straw that's in it, and then its consistency is similar to the mortar. That's what they would say. The merchants of Charach either means a booth. Yeah. The merchants, they would say, come take your straw for the mitzvah. This was a mitzvah. You're not your straw, your spices for the mitzvah, because it commemorated the straw. Okay, we're up to the Mishnah. That's how they would advertise. Mazgale Kesheni. The second cup is poured. Now, Khan haben shayelaviv. Over here is where the child asks. He says, "Why are you pouring the second cup? You never do this. First, we always make kiddush and then we wash. And now you're pouring a second cup of wine. What's going on?" He doesn't remember from last year. Yes. The Rashbam gives us another girsa that it's the chayin. It's haben shayel aviv, and it's supposed to mean, and it's correct. Like Cain b'nai that they spoke correctly. So now here's the correct. It's correct for the child to ask. If the child doesn't have the knowledge to ask, so Aviv Malamdai, the father teaches him what to ask. You have to translate ma. You're supposed to ask your original question. Like we saw, Abai asked an original question. Why are you taking the table away? We didn't eat yet. Right? You're supposed to be curious. They have to translate the word ma as why. I remember as a kid I was thinking about why are they telling me there's 4 questions? There's only one question, and then there's 4 answers. What is different about this night than all other nights? Well, this night you did this, and that night you did that. That's 4. That's one answer. It's 4 answers. If ma means what? Yeah. So, yeah. One of the translations is. Yeah, it could be that there's actually I mean, I don't know if that example is the best one, but to do things that are a little strange to make them wonder, what are we doing? And then to incorporate that into the story. Right. I don't know if children ask about anything that's good. They never ask, like, why is there more dessert? They only ask, like, why are you taking the food away? Right? Right? They would never ask. So it needs to be something that's like odd, like, how come we're not eating? Well, you're just drinking more wine, but that's good for you. Come on, let's get to the meal. So why is this night different than all other nights? And now it's explained, like, what is, like, that's the introduction. Okay. And all other nights we have chametz or matzah, or and matzah, it says. Tonight it's just matzah. Well, that's what he sees on the table. And other nights we have different vegetables. Tonight it's just maror. On other nights we have roasted, cooked, or very cooked. Tonight it's only roasted. This is a ancient question. This was only applied during the times of the Beis Hamikdash. Since then, we've updated the Manashtana to this one was taken out. However, there's no Korban Pesach. We don't have roasted. So, however, there's a problem here because who says that you can't have other foods there that are cooked? Maybe the korban was roasted. Maybe the chagiga was roasted. We had a discussion about that. But I'm not allowed to have something. I'm not allowed to have cooked food. I mean, at least in the question. Let's say I have, I don't know, in the soup there was some that's cooked. Didn't have to be from the korban. I got it from whatever. I don't know. Let's read it without the parentheses. It's not going to fit because and all nights we dip once. On this night we dip twice. You see, it's a little different than what we're familiar with. And all nights we dip once. Usually we say, and all nights we don't dip even once. The Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah says, on all nights we dip once. Tonight we dip twice. Why? Because their eating was always with dipping. So it was always during the meal. But here we dip twice because we started to dip before the meal. According to the child's understanding, that's how the father teaches him. You always start with the negative, and then you finish with the positive. The Deirish, and you expound on the verses of Me'arami Aviravi Achig Mikol Parshakula until you get to the end. Arami Aviravi, that's in the Bikurim. Okay. The literal translation, Arami Ovid Avi. A wandering Arami was my father. But we don't translate it like that. We translate it as Arami, Lavan Arami, tried to destroy my father. Ovid. You had the two. It's totally different. Avraham Avinu was an Arami Ovid. It was like a lost Aram. Okay, Tana Rabbanu was taught in the Brisa, Chacham B'nai Shailai. If he's wise, the son, so the son asks. V'meina Chacham, the son isn't wise. So Ishtei Shaltei. Then his wife asks the questions. V'mlav, who shall ask me? He asks the questions. They ask the questions to each other. Every night of the year, and every day, we have a mitzvah to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim. We say in Vayomer, right? And we're obligated to mention that even at night. Like we say in the Mishnah, Ma'aser Rebbe Lezer, right? That every night we have to say it. So what's the difference on Pesach? That you have to say the story of the Exodus. We do it every night. And I already said in Shul, I said the Shema. So there's a bunch of answers. One of them is that really the Exodus doesn't need to be mentioned verbally. It could be just thought about. Another one, here we have to speak about. Another pshat is that it could be short. Here we're supposed to expound on it. But one of the pshatim is that you just mention it every night. But here you have to have it in a way of question and answer. So the question and answer part of this is very important. And all nights we dip once, tonight we dip twice. Maskifla Rava. Rava says that we have to dip every night. We have to dip once. It sounds like there's an obligation to dip. We're not obligated to dip at all. But tonight we're obligated to dip twice. Maskefla Rav Safra. Rav Safra asks Rav, an obligation for the children. I would have understood this, that without the Rashbam, I would have understood this, that what you're saying is not that we dip every night, and tonight we dip twice. Every night we're not obligated to dip, and now we're obligated to dip. And the question would be, do the children really recognize what we're doing as obligation, or what we're doing just because we're doing? The evil they don't have an obligation, they're just joining along. But that's not how the Rashbam learns. The Rashbam learns that the whole reason why you had the first dipping was just to get the children to ask a question. That's not an obligation. You're just acting weird so that the children should say, what are you doing? But that's not an obligation, right? What you did for the children, you're now calling an obligation. Rav Safra says, not what the way Rabbi said. No, not Eino Chayavim. We're not discussing obligations. We're just talking about what we do. And all nights we don't dip even once. No, I don't understand. I thought every night they dipped when they ate. I thought it was considered dipping. They whatever the case is, I don't know. Okay. I thought that was the style of eating. So how could he say on all nights we don't dip? What do you mean? During the meal, that's how they ate. They would dip. Okay. Question. You start with the negative and you conclude with the positive. My bigness, what negative do you want to talk about? Our ancestors were originally idolaters. Who was an idolater? Terah. He was an idolater. So we start off with the gnos. According to Rav, when you want to start off with something derogatory, you start off with something that's spiritually derogatory. Shmuel says we start off the derogatory is the negative is that we were originally slaves, something physical, something physical. Yeah, it fits with Rav and Shmuel. Rav was always like more halakha, and Shmuel is more dinimaminas, the doctor. Amalei Rav Nachman L'Daru Abdei. Rav Nachman says to his servant Daru, Avda demapikli mar lecheres v'yevli kasper v'dav amay boy l'meimelei. If a master lets his servant out and gives him gold and silver, what should he do? You should give him a lot of praise. You've exempted us from saying manishtana. Yeah, this is a little strange because he exempted us. Rav Nachman asked the question. Yeah, I see in the side of the Gemara, this Petrasim Manishtana wasn't in the manuscript. But I get what's going on. He's saying that that's the basic story. No, you could stick to the text, you could stick to the script, or you could go off from the script and do it your own way. But however, the next Mishnah is going to keep us focused to the text. Okay. I wonder if Reb Nachman then let his servant free, or else he's really teasing him. It's like, what would happen if I would set you free and give you a lot of money? I'm just asking. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Rabbi Gamliel would say, Kol Shlayama, anyone that doesn't say Shleisha Devarim Ela B'Pesach, the following three things, Layatzi Yedei Chavasei. He doesn't fulfill his obligation. Which obligation? I guess the obligation of reciting Nagada. I guess. Ve'elohein. These are the three things that a person has to mention. Pesach, Matzah, Marer. He has to mention those three things. Pesach, Al Shum. Why do you mention the Pesach? I guess you have to give the explanation also. Why do we have the Pesach? Rabbi Gamliel says that you have to say the explanation, or you just have to mention the words. Let's assume he means the whole explanation. Because Hashem jumped over our father's houses in Egypt. As it says in the pasuk, you should say that this is this Pesach sacrifice that Hashem jumped over the houses. Matzah, you mentioned the matzah. Because our fathers were redeemed from Egypt. They baked the bread that they took out of Egypt. Now, there's a question on this, because that's not why we eat matzah. We eat matzah because Hashem commanded us. Not that they did. I mean, it turned out that they didn't have, that there was bread that they took out that they didn't have time to bake also, but it was, Hashem said to eat matzah. Yeah, so this, I guess the reason, there's a command to eat matzah that night, but then we eat matzah the rest of Pesach because the bread that they took out of Egypt they didn't have time to bake it. Yeah, I think they say that it baked on their backs. I don't know if that's a real source. In the pictures, it looks like that. They try to show that it baked on their back. I think that's what they told me as a kid, but I'm not sure. I don't think it says that. It says they didn't have time to bake it, right? Yeah, it's good for Sunday school. Okay. So, Gamliel would have been in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. It was in the time of Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. It was Rabbi Eliezer's brother-in-law. He was, right before the Churban. It was in the time of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. It was in the time of the students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai.
So he had a real focus.
Probably as a child.
It's why did you need to learn from coach to know why did you not stay? I mean, like this week we learned that certain things happen. Like the time you have to say it, otherwise you're not going to say it. On the other, you have to point everything except the Korban.
Right.
That's part of it. Why didn't you say anyone that isn't doing it?
Right. So it turns out that he has the matzah there. He has the maror there. And he probably had the Korban Pesach also. But it's not enough. You have to actually talk about it.
So here's one where you go back and talk about it.
You have to talk about what you're doing. In other words, even we have the matzah there also. It's sitting over there. But nevertheless, you have to mention it. Right? You got to talk about the food. Well, we're going to see soon about the pointing or whatever. Some meals you go to, all they do is talk about the food. And then other meals, no one mentions the food. They just, they're eating, but we talk about other stuff, not the food. So apparently, the Seder, you have to talk about the food. At least these three parts. Okay, Maror Rosham Shemara Mitzrim Eschayeh Alishin with Mitzrayim. Maror is because the Mitzrayim made bitter the lives of our fathers. Shemar by Maror Eschayeh L'Gaymer. They made their lives bitter. B'chol Davadar Chayev Adam L'Reis Esat Mikila Yatzim Mitzrayim. Every generation, the person needs to see himself as if he came out of Mitzrayim. This is because of this is what Hashem did for me when I came out of Egypt. It says Mitzrayim. Lefikach. This is all a Mishnah. This is a long Mishnah. Therefore, we have to give thanks and praise and extol and exalt and praise and to bless and exalt and extol. To the one that did to our fathers and to us all these miracles. He took us out from slavery to freedom. From worry to joy. From mourning to a holiday. From darkness to great light. From subjugation to redemption. And now, and we say in front of him, Hallelujah. How much of the Hallelujah should you say? Hallel, right? This is where the Hallel begins. You say until Ema Banim Smecha Hallelujah. You stop before B'tzeis Yisrael. You don't say B'tzeis Yisrael. Why don't you say B'tzeis Yisrael? Well, I think Beishamai says you don't say B'tzeis Yisrael because the redemption wasn't until after midnight. That's what Makas B'chayr says. So you're not holding there yet. So you stop over there. You finish B'tzeis Yisrael. And then you finish off the bracha with Kol Yisrael. Right? There's a bracha that you say afterwards. You say Asher Galanu v'Galas Evasin Mitzrayim v'Leia Chaysim. You finish off with who redeemed us and our fathers from Egypt, but you don't finish off Baruch Atah Hashem Gal Yisrael. Rabbi Kiva Imer Kein Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Evasin Yagiinu L'Maidim L'Gal Machir Mabam L'Chasim L'Shalom Smeichim B'Dinyan Yirach V'Sasam V'Avei D'Sachem V'Neichel Sham Min Apsachim Min Azvachim. There's a difference over here depending on if it's Mitzvah Shabbos. Remind me what the difference is. It's Mitzvah Shabbos. Yeah, the Chagiga couldn't have been brought. The Chagiga couldn't have been brought on Friday. It had to. So you would say from the Pesachim first. You don't. Not on Friday. The Chagiga couldn't have been brought on Shabbos. So you say Min Pesachim Min Azvachim. Usually say Min Azvachim Min Pesachim because you filled up on the Chagiga. Then you had the Karban Pesach at the end. Ad Baruch Atah Hashem Gal Yisrael. And then you conclude, according to Rabbi Kiva, you say Baruch Atah Hashem Gal Yisrael. Amar Rava says, you have to add in those words. And he took us out. Amar Rava, mitzvah, matzah tzarech lagbia, mar tzarech lagbia, basar ein tzarech lagbia. You have to lift up the matzah, you have to lift up the maror, but you don't have to lift up the meat. Not only that, when you do lift it up, it's bad. It looks like you're eating kachim, you're sacrifice. This is the Pesach. That's not good. It's not a Pesach. Amar Ravacha Bar Yaakov Suma Patur Milomer Haggadah. Ravacha Bar Yaakov says that a blind person is exempt from reciting the Haggadah. It says over here because of this. This obviously means that he can see it. And over there it says B'nei this son of ours, talking about the Ben Seir and Meira, the father and the mother say, this son of ours is a Zaylo V'Seive, is a glutton and whatever. Malahalam Prat L'Suma. Over there, Ben Seir and Meira, that wayward child cannot, it doesn't, those laws don't apply if the parents are blind. One of the parents are blind. Afghans, Prat L'Suma, over here also, the Haggadah exempts blind people. You're exempt from saying the Haggadah if you're blind. Aini, is that so? Vamar Merima said, Shaltino l'Rabbanan de Rabbi Yosef. We asked the students, the rabbis that were in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yosef, Mandamar Haggadah to Rabbi Yosef. Who says the Haggadah in the house of Rabbi Yosef? No, Rabbi Yosef was blind. Amru, Rabbi Yosef. They said that Rabbi Yosef says the Haggadah. I'm sorry? Rabbi Sheshes. We'll see. Mandamar Haggadah to Man Amar, I got it Bei Rav Sheshes. Who says the Haggadah in the house of Rav Sheshes? Amar Rav Sheshes. So they said that Rav Sheshes says it. So the Gemara explains, you just said, Ravacha Bar Yaakov says that a blind person is exempt. Turns out Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Sheshes did not hold that. Kasavri Rabbanon, the rabbis held matzah b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanon. That it's only based on the pasuk that says bavur zeh, because of this, and because of it, when you say this, it means that you're able to see it. It says Kasavri Rabbanon matzah b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanon. That the matzah nowadays is Rabbanon, is midrabbanon. It's not deraisa. There's a discussion about this later on. We hold that the matzah is a excuse me, is a deraisa, which would mean that the Haggadah that we recite over the matzah is a deraisa. But if they would hold that it's a derabbanan, then we would say that the Haggadah that they're reciting over it is also derabbanan, and it's not necessary to learn from these psukim. It's just a rabbinic enactment. That would mean that Rav Acha Bar Yaakov holds that matzah is a deraisa, and that's why blind people are exempt. Is that so? Rav Acha Bar Yaakov matzah b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. It's a contradiction. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov later on is going to say that matzah nowadays is only d'Rabbanan. We don't hold like that. So Kosavar, the answer is Kosavar called the tikkun Rabban ken deraisa tikkun. Really, he holds that it is rabbinic. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. But if that's the case, then why is he making a big deal about a blind person? Isn't the whole mitzvah is just rabbinic? So he says, I know it's rabbinic, but the rabbis only instituted the way that it would be biblical. In biblical, in the times of the Korban Pesach, times of the Beis Hamikdash, then it was biblical, and the matzah was midaraisa. Everything was minatayra, and the reciting of the Haggadah would have not included. It wouldn't have included blind people. So therefore, when the rabbis instituted it, it doesn't include blind people. That's Rav Acha Bar Yaakov's opinion. But Rav Sheshes, Rav Yosef Nami, Avadi called the tikkun Rabban ken deraisa tikkun. What about Rav Sheshes and Rav Yosef? Don't they hold that the rabbis would only institute it the way that it was originally, and they were exempt because they're blind? Where it says Hachiyash to hold it. Bishlei Mahasam over there by the Ben Seir Moira. It could have said that son. It doesn't have to say this son. But instead it says this son. It's coming to exclude a blind person. But if over here we have to say because of this. We have to say it has supposed to be in front of you. So we're talking about the matzah. My lichter. What other thing? What did you want to say? Bavur who? Who's the who? Because of that. There is no that. Over there, you're giving a description of what you're talking about. Benenu, our son. And you could have said this son or that son. But over here, you're saying because of. And because of what? Because of that? There's a million that's. So it has to be because of what's here. So I have to say that. So Ella, my lichtab, Ella bavur matzah mara does it has to be because of the matzah and mara. So therefore, what Rav Yosef and Rav Sheshes are doing is I don't have your Gezeira Shava that's going to exclude a blind person, because I don't think that the word zeh by bavur zeh is really significant enough that it's going to tell me that it's similar to the Ben Seir Moira that excludes a blind person. Okay.